The Service Department of Pacific North Equipment is providing this video to help you keep your Dresser H-Series bulldozer operating efficiently. We will start with a daily walk-around inspection, showing you specific checks of fluid levels and wear points. The maintenance section will show you the rest of the fluid level checks, filters and strainers, fluid drains, and grease fittings. The fluids and their change intervals will depend on operating and climatic conditions. The operation and maintenance manual for your machine will list the types of fluids and their change intervals. The hydraulic oil level should be checked with the implements resting on the ground level with the machine. The oil level can be seen in the sight glass. The hydraulic system will build pressure in the reservoir. Open the cap slowly to vent pressure from the tank when adding fluid. Check the sprocket mount bolts for looseness. Inspect the carrier roller for damage or fluid leakage. The transmission fluid level dipstick is to the right of the operator's seat. The level should be checked with the engine off and the oil cold. The dipstick is also marked on the opposite side for checking the level when the oil is warm. After replacing the dipstick, look for loose track pads. Check for fluid leaking from the front idler axle shaft seals on both the outside and the inside. A sight glass eliminates the need to remove the radiator cap to check the engine coolant level. A lever is provided on top of the radiator cap to safely vent the pressure on the cooling system before adding fluid. Inspect the right side hydraulic hoses, hoist cylinder, angle cylinder, and the tilt cylinder for leakage or damage. Because the front of the blade is continually being worn away, it is especially important to check for dents or punctures in the blade skin. Also check the wear on the cutting edges and look for loose bolts. Inspect the left side angle cylinder, hoist cylinder, and hydraulic hoses. Look for loose track pads, leaks at the idler shaft and top roller, and loose bolts on the sprocket. Move to the rear of the machine and look underneath for damage, leaks, or debris stuck in the undercarriage. Check the fuel level by removing the cap and pulling out the dipstick. After reinstalling the fuel tank fill cap, move forward to check the engine oil. The engine oil dipstick and fill tube are under the door on the hood. The level should be checked with the engine off and the oil cold. After replacing the dipstick and closing the door, the machine is ready to start. Turn the master key on. Move the throttle lever to half speed. Then start the engine. As soon as the engine starts, move the throttle lever back to the idle position. Let the engine idle for at least 2 minutes to warm it up. The operator should buckle his seat belt before moving the machine. To review, the fluid levels have been checked and filled. Any damage has been found and repaired. The engine has been warmed up. The machine is now ready to operate. A decal on the inside of the battery compartment door shows Dresser Company's recommended maintenance for these machines. We will break down the maintenance by systems showing fill ports, filters, and drains. The fuel tank has a sediment drain valve inside an access door under the fuel tank. The fuel tank holds about 37 gallons. A shutoff valve behind the drain allows changing the fuel filter with minimum spillage. There is a replaceable inline filter in the suction side of the fuel transfer pump. A drain on the bottom of the main fuel filter allows purging of contamination. The engine oil fill spout is next to the dipstick. The engine oil filter is a spin-on type and is located below and behind the alternator on the right side of the engine. The engine oil drain plug is protected by a cover on the belly pan. The bolts can be removed with a 9/16" wrench. The engine oil drain plug can be removed with an 11/16" or 17mm socket wrench. The engine holds 2 1/2 gallons of oil. The engine cooling system will have to be drained and flushed periodically. A hole in the bottom of the frame at the right front corner allows access to the radiator drain valve. The cooling system holds 7 gallons. The engines in these machines have an automatic fan belt tensioner to reduce maintenance. The belt should be checked periodically for damage and wear. Use the dipstick tube to add fluid to the transmission. The transmission filter is a spin-on type and is located in the battery compartment. A suction strainer is under the operator compartment deck plate. It should be removed and cleaned when the transmission fluid is changed. The transmission drain plug is under the steering case between the final drives. The transmission holds 21 gallons. Remove the sheet metal under the fuel tank at the back of the machine to replace the transmission breather. It is attached to the transmission fill tube. Before working on any part of the hydraulic system, lower the implements to the ground. Stop the engine, release the pressure in the reservoir, and move the control levers their full stroke to release any pressure in the system. The hydraulic filter is behind a panel on the operator's right side. The hydraulic tank breather is to the outside of the hydraulic filter. The hydraulic tank drain plug is to the rear of the tank on the bottom. It can be removed using a 1 5/16" socket. The hydraulic pump suction strainer can be removed by taking the hose loose and unscrewing the strainer from the tank. The hydraulic reservoir holds 9.5 gallons. Use a 1/2" drive ratchet to remove the pipe plugs to check the level in the Sprocket drive housings. Each housing holds 4 gallons. A 1/2" drive ratchet can also be used to remove the drain plug at the bottom of each housing. These machines use synthetic fiber bushings in the front implement moving joints. Grease is not needed for lubricating these joints. The control levers for the blade functions all have grease fittings. These fittings are located next to the hydraulic filter. The combination brake and decel pedal has a fitting at the shaft end. There are 3 fittings for the throttle linkage behind the left side engine cover. To check track tension, it is necessary to collect the slack between the top roller and the idler. Place a block under the most forward browser and drive the machine forward on the block just enough to pull a slack out of the bottom of the track. Lower the blade to the ground and shut off the engine. Stand on the track between the top roller and the front idler to make the track sag. Place a straight edge on top of the grousers between the top roller and the idler. The track should be between 2 to 2 1/2 inches under the center of the straight edge. A cover must be removed for access to a grease fitting and bleeder valve. Use a grease gun to increase track tension. Loosen the entire fitting and grease will bleed out a drain hole to reduce tension on the track. There may be some danger when releasing the track tension. Be sure to read the procedure for loosening the tracks in the operation and maintenance manual. Now you've seen the locations of the fluid level checks, filters, fluid drains, and grease fittings. You will avoid costly repairs and downtime by performing Dresser's recommended maintenance. This video is a service of Pacific North Equipment Company.